Rachel here. Welcome to my Slow TV Stitchery. Good morning everyone. Now, there are a couple of points to catch up on. That line there is a little straight, so I may have to pull a few more of the slightly darker colour into here. It's surprisingly hard not to end up with a slightly too straight line along there. I've filled in this little spot here just with tent stitch. All I want to do is to knock back the colour so that when I put the slip on, it doesn't matter what angle you look at it from, you're not going to see white grinning at you. I've unpicked some of this section. There's maybe a little bit more to do, and I need to fill that in, tidy it up, and I need to do the C. And I've started looking at colours, so what I may do is blend these. I've not blended colours often in this piece, but these are and these are. This has different colours in it only because the yarn was a semi-solid and not a solid colour. So blending thread in the needle is not going to draw the eye too much, and it will enable me to knock back the colour a little. I haven't decided on the stitch for the C. That is at the moment a bit of a problem. I haven't come to a conclusion about what I think I should use, so I'm going to finish this spot, start looking at tidying this up, and then tackle the C. We may not, of course, get that far today. In fact, I rather hope I don't, because that will give me longer to think about it. Oh, it's nice when I put the magnifiers on here and I can actually see what I'm doing. Now, I'm looking at this. I don't want too many stitches, but I think I do want a couple of cream stitches there. Those of you who've been following my adventures in stitch for any length of time will have noticed by now that sometimes my ideas work really well and sometimes they don't work at all, and I have to think again. And that's just a feature of being experimental in the way I stitch. and playing games with how I do it. And I don't in the least bit mind not quite knowing what's going to happen next. If I minded, this isn't the way I would approach embroidery. That may seem obvious, but it has not over the years been obvious to everyone I've spoken to about the way I tackle things. A lot of the interest for me lies in finding out what works, and the world being the way it is, that means finding out a lot of what doesn't work as well. So at the moment my challenge here is to work out what would be a good choice of stitch for the sea, because sorting out the sky, even that patch I've been undoing, I have a few more raggy bits to pull out, but that's just more of the same, and it's not difficult, it's just occasionally it catches me out with things like making a line straighter than I thought it would be. And my difficulty is that it's actually at this point, as you're looking at Tynemouth Priory, you're already inside the piers and on the river, and granted it looks straight out to the North Sea, and can get a bit rough. I don't necessarily want a rough sea, but I want something that will look different to the brick stitch that I've used for the shore. And Fairly obviously I want to use a diagonal stitch. Equally obviously it's got to be something different in impression to the sky. So there's a lot of leafing through my assorted stitch dictionaries been going on. And I've even acquired a new book about needlepoint, partly in hopes that it would assist with this problem, and partly because, as always, I'm looking to find out more about really all details of the craft. If you've read Terry Pratchett, you may know of Granny Weatherwax, the doyenne of witches, and there are rules of what witchcraft can and cannot do, and what you should and should not do. And one of the things that one learns when advancing in the craft is that sometimes the rules do need to be broken, and when you're going to do that, you do it good and proper. No half measures. And I'm rather with Granny on that. Although I don't think there are any set of circumstances in which I would have ended up being a Discworld witch. I've also been thinking about my next stitchery for the Watermill, and suitable stitches for mostly rock in the current thought. And I had a discussion about it with my mam, who has some experience with teaching, and pointed out that there will always be somebody in the class who does as my grandmama apparently used to do, and just gets deeply engrossed and stitches solidly for as long as they're allowed. And you need to be sure that you provide them with enough to do so that they don't get bored. So I need to have ideas for dense stitchery for those who are faster or more accomplished, and ideas for accomplishing the same result without using quite so much, without stitching quite so densely. Always slightly terrifying when you're reinstating something which has gone astray. Because the unpicking is inclined to cause problems in itself. However, we will see what I can do, which will help for this first set of stitches, is always try to go down where I'm next to my old stitches. That might help to pull down any extraneous bits of thread. Every time I put on my computer, I intend to look out a travel agent, holiday operator that I saw online a little while ago, who concentrate on things in the UK, and suggest to them the idea of pony trekking from Bamborough to Yeavering with appropriate professional support, shall we say, historian or archaeologist. And every time at the moment I close the lid of the laptop and then splutter quietly to myself because I've forgotten yet again. It has, however, occurred to me also that, never having done more than ride a donkey at the seaside when I was small, I should probably at least try a half day on a horse to see whether I enjoy the experience. And the reason for going on horseback is it would give a different view of the countryside, I think. I've been reposting on Coffee the early videos, and so I rewatched a few of them last night, and was very interesting, in fact, to see some of the things that I was thinking about when I started the Amana family, that somewhere along the line, when it came to it, didn't occur to me again. So somewhere along the line, the decision that I was puzzled about, that I could see was coming and didn't know how to think about, had become a non-decision by the time I got there. And I think that's a good thing, because there is always a point where you need to spend all the brain power you have on working out what you're going to do next, or how you're going to tackle something. And it's really, really useful if some of the decisions that you thought you might need to really struggle with turn out not to be decisions at all, or turn out to have an obvious solution when it comes down to it. That's all for this session. I hope you enjoyed following along. Happy stitching!